The sting of her palm across my face was nothing compared to the humiliation that followed. But what happened 3 days later when her father showed up at our door changed everything. This is the story of how one slap turned into a family war that nobody saw coming. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. My name is Jake Morrison, and until last month I thought I knew exactly who I was dealing with in my own family. My older brother Marcus had always been the golden child, star quarterback in high school, full scholarship to college, landed a 6-figure job right out of graduation. When he married Stephanie Chen 2 years ago, our parents practically threw a parade. She was beautiful, educated, came from what everyone called good stock. What they didn't know was that beneath her perfect smile lived someone who treated family hierarchy like a military chain of command. The trouble started during what was supposed to be a simple family barbecue at Marcus and Stephanie's house in Millfield Heights. Our parents, Robert and Linda Morrison, had driven down from Portland for the weekend. My younger sister Emma was there with her boyfriend Tyler. It should have been one of those easy summer afternoons where the biggest drama was whether to flip the burgers or leave them alone for another minute. I was helping Emma set up the outdoor speakers when Stephanie walked over with that particular expression she wore when she was about to make someone's day difficult. She had this way of tilting her head slightly to the left and pressing her lips together that meant trouble was coming. "Jake, I need you to move your car," she said, not even bothering with pleasantries. I looked toward the driveway. My old Honda Civic was parked behind Marcus's BMW, but there was plenty of room for anyone to get out. "Is someone leaving? I can move it if you need. I don't want it blocking the view from our front window. It looks trashy parked there." The word trashy hit like a slap before she'd even raised her hand. Emma stopped what she was doing with the speaker wires and shot me a look that said she'd heard it too. Tyler suddenly became very interested in examining the deck railing. "Stephanie, there's nothing wrong with where my car is parked. It's not blocking anything." Quote. She stepped closer, lowering her voice to that dangerous whisper that people use when they want to seem reasonable while saying unreasonable things. "Jake, you're a guest in our home. When I ask you to do something, you do it. That's how respect works. I'm not just a guest. I'm Marcus's brother. You're a 24-year-old community college dropout who still lives with his parents and works part-time at a hardware store. In this house, you follow my rules." The words hung in the air like smoke from a grease fire. Emma had gone completely still. Tyler was now staring at his shoes like they held the secrets of the universe. From inside the house, I could hear Dad laughing at something Marcus had said, completely oblivious to what was happening on the deck. "Excuse me?" Stephanie's voice got even quieter. "You heard what I said. Now move your car, or I'll have Marcus make you move it." Something snapped inside me. Not violently, but like a rubber band that had been stretched too far for too long. "You know what, Stephanie? I think you've got some serious issues with control that have nothing to do with where anyone parks their car." That's when her hand flew across my face. The slap wasn't just loud, it echoed off the deck overhang and seemed to bounce around the yard. Emma gasped. Tyler's head snapped up like he'd been electrocuted. From inside the house, the laughter stopped. "Don't you ever speak to me that way again," Stephanie hissed. "Know your place in this family." I stood there with my cheek burning, more shocked than hurt. This was my brother's wife. This was supposed to be a family barbecue. This was supposed to be normal. Marcus appeared in the doorway, taking in the scene, me with a red handprint on my face, Stephanie standing with her chin raised like she'd just won something important, Emma looking like she'd witnessed a car accident. "What's going on out here?" Before I could say anything, Stephanie turned to him with tears that seemed to appear from nowhere. "Your brother was being completely disrespectful to me. He called me controlling and said I had serious issues. I was just asking him to move his car away from our window." Marcus looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen in my older brother's eyes before. Disappointment mixed with irritation, like I was a problem he had to solve. "Jake, what the hell? You can't talk to my wife like that." "Marcus, she slapped me." "Your wife slapped me because I wouldn't move my car from a perfectly legal parking spot." "You were being disrespectful," Stephanie said, dabbing at her dry eyes. "I felt threatened." "Threatened by asking you not to call me trashy?" Marcus stepped fully onto the deck, and suddenly he seemed bigger than I remembered. "You need to apologize to Stephanie, right now." The world felt like it had tilted sideways. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious, apologize." I looked around at faces that should have been familiar but suddenly seemed foreign. Emma was staring at Marcus like she didn't recognize him. Tyler was backing toward the stairs like he wanted to escape. Our parents were still inside, probably wondering why the conversation had gotten so quiet. "I'm not apologizing for being slapped in the face for parking my car." Marcus stepped closer. "Then maybe you should leave." The words hit harder than Stephanie's slap had. This wasn't just about a parking spot or hurt feelings. This was about who belonged where, who had power over whom, who got to decide what respect looked like in this family. "Fine," I said, fishing my keys out of my pocket. "I'll move my trashy car." All the way home. As I walked toward the driveway, I heard Stephanie telling Marcus how sorry she was that his brother was so difficult, how she'd only been trying to maintain standards in their home, how she hoped this wouldn't ruin the whole day for everyone. Her voice carried perfectly across the yard, designed to make sure I heard every word. I got in my Honda and backed out of the driveway, leaving behind a family barbecue that had turned into something else entirely. In my rearview mirror, I could see Marcus with his arm around Stephanie's shoulders, comforting her while she continued her performance. What I didn't know was that Emma had recorded the whole thing on her phone. What I didn't know was that she'd already sent the video to our cousin David, who was married to someone whose father happened to be a retired Army general. What I didn't know was that Stephanie's idea of family hierarchy was about to collide with someone who actually understood what those words meant. The real story was just beginning. The drive home took 23 minutes, but it felt like hours. Every red light gave me more time to replay what had just happened, and each replay made it worse. By the time I pulled into my parents' driveway in Cedar Grove, my hands were shaking. Not from anger, but from something deeper. The realization that my own brother had chosen his wife's version of events over what he'd witnessed with his own eyes. Mom was in the kitchen when I walked through the front door, still wearing the dress she'd picked out special for the barbecue. She looked up from loading the dishwasher, expecting to see me carrying leftover potato salad or maybe complaining about Marcus hogging the grill. "Jake, what are you doing home? I thought you were staying for dinner." I touched my cheek, which still felt warm where Stephanie's hand had connected. "There was a problem." "What kind of problem?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Are you okay? I can't believe what just happened. Marcus is acting like you attacked her or something." Mom was still waiting for an explanation, but how do you tell your mother that her golden child's perfect wife had slapped her youngest son and that her golden child had taken the wife's side? How do you explain that a family barbecue had turned into a power struggle that you'd apparently lost? Stephanie and I had a disagreement about where I parked my car. Mom's eyebrows went up. "A disagreement serious enough to make you leave?" My phone buzzed again. Another text from Emma. "She's telling everyone you were aggressive and threatening. Dad believes her. This is insane." Then another. "Tyler got it all on video too. We both saw what really happened." "Jake?" Mom was still waiting. "She slapped me, Mom. Stephanie slapped me because I wouldn't move my car away from their front window." The words hung between us like a bridge neither of us wanted to cross. Mom set down the plate she'd been holding and turned to face me fully. "She what?" "Hit me, across the face, in front of Emma and Tyler." Mom's expression went through several changes. Confusion, disbelief, then something that looked like she was trying to solve a math problem that didn't add up. "That doesn't sound like Stephanie. Are you sure there wasn't more to it?" A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. And there it was. The same doubt I'd seen in Marcus's eyes, now reflected in my own mother's face. The assumption that sweet, educated, well-mannered Stephanie couldn't possibly have done something so inappropriate without serious provocation. "I'm sure, Mom." She was quiet for a long moment, then reached for her phone. "I should call your father and find out what's happening over there." "Don't." The word came out sharper than I'd intended. "Just don't. Let them tell you their version first." Mom studied my face. probably looking for signs that I was lying or exaggerating or leaving out crucial details. Jake, if what you're saying is true, then we need to address this as a family. My phone rang. Marcus. Answer it, Mom said. I hit the green button and put it on speaker. Marcus's voice filled the kitchen, and he sounded tired in a way I'd never heard before. Jake, we need to talk. I'm listening. Stephanie feels terrible about what happened. She says she was overwhelmed and reacted badly. Mom and I exchanged looks. This wasn't the full confession she was probably hoping for, but it was something. She feels terrible about slapping me? There was a pause. She says it wasn't really a slap, more like she gestured and accidentally made contact. The bottom dropped out of my stomach. Marcus, are you listening to yourself? She hit me hard enough that my face is still red. Look, emotions were running high. Maybe everyone overreacted a little. Everyone? My voice was getting louder. I parked my car legally and got assaulted for it. What exactly did I overreact to? Another pause. In the background, I could hear Stephanie's voice but couldn't make out the words. She wants to talk to you, to explain her side. No. Jake, come on. She's family. Family doesn't slap family over parking spots, Marcus. It was an accident. It wasn't an accident. The words exploded out of me. She told me to know my place in this family. She called me trashy. She threatened to have you make me move my car like I'm some kind of servant. Then when I stood up for myself, she hit me. And instead of defending your brother, you took her side. Silence on the other end. Mom was staring at the phone like it might bite her. You don't understand the pressure she's under, Marcus finally said. Her family has certain expectations about how things should be handled. What kind of expectations? Her father is very traditional. He believes in order, respect, hierarchy. Stephanie grew up in a house where everyone knew their role. Something cold settled in my chest. What does her father do? He's retired from the military, Army General. Look, Jake, I know this seems bad, but if you could just apologize for the misunderstanding. I hung up. Mom and I stood in the kitchen, the silence stretching between us like a chasm. Finally, she spoke. An Army General? I nodded. And Marcus wants you to apologize? I nodded again. Mom was quiet for another long moment, then picked up her phone and started dialing. Who are you calling? Your father. He needs to come home, now. While she made the call, my phone lit up with messages. Emma had sent the video to our cousin David, who'd apparently sent it to his wife Sarah. Sarah had questions. Lots of questions. Sarah's text read, Emma sent me the video. Is this the same Stephanie who's been bragging about her father being some hotshot general? Because if it is, this is about to get very interesting. I typed back, what do you mean? Her father is General Raymond Chen, retired. I know him through my dad's work. If he finds out his daughter slapped someone at a family gathering, especially over something this petty, he's going to lose his mind. The man doesn't tolerate disrespect or abuse of power, even from his own family. My phone rang again. This time it was Dad. Jake, your mother says there was an incident. What happened? I told him the whole story, from the parking request to the slap to Marcus's phone call. Dad listened without interrupting, which was unusual for him. And now Marcus wants you to apologize? For the misunderstanding. Dad was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. Dad? I'm coming home. Don't do anything until I get there. The line went dead. I looked at Mom, who was still processing everything she'd heard. What do you think Dad's going to do? She shook her head slowly. I don't know. But your father doesn't like bullies, Jake. He never has. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with another message from Sarah. I just talked to my dad. He's calling General Chen tonight. The situation is about to change very quickly. I stared at the message, wondering if things were about to get better or much, much worse. Dad walked through the front door 47 minutes later with the expression he used to wear when one of us had broken something expensive. His tie was loosened, his sleeves rolled up, and he carried himself like a man who'd spent the entire drive home making decisions he didn't want to make. Where's your mother? Upstairs. She said she needed to think. He nodded and headed straight for his office without another word. Through the thin walls, I could hear him on the phone, his voice low but intense. The conversation lasted nearly 20 minutes. When he emerged, he looked older than he had that morning. "Pack a bag, Jake." "What?" "We're driving to Portland tonight. You're staying with your Aunt Carol for a few days." The suggestion hit me like cold water. "Dad, I'm not running away from this." "You're not running away. You're removing yourself from a situation that's about to get complicated." He sat down heavily in his recliner. "I just spoke with Marcus. Then I spoke with Stephanie. Then I spoke with Marcus again." "And?" "Stephanie's story has changed 3 times in the last hour. First it was an accident. Then it was self-defense because you were threatening her. Now it's back to being a misunderstanding that got blown out of proportion." I felt vindicated and sick at the same time. She's lying. I know she's lying. The question is why. Dad rubbed his temples. Marcus is caught in the middle, and he's making choices based on keeping peace in his marriage rather than what's right. So I just disappear until this blows over? You disappear until her father gets involved. The words sent a chill through me. Sarah said her dad was going to call General Chen. He did, 2 hours ago. Dad's expression was grim. General Chen is driving down from Seattle tomorrow morning. He wants to speak with everyone who was present during the incident. Everyone? Everyone, including Tyler, who apparently recorded the whole thing on his phone. My stomach dropped. Tyler recorded it? Emma wasn't the only one. Your cousin David has 2 different angles of what happened. Dad leaned forward. Jake, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about family drama anymore. General Chen spent 38 years in the Army. He has very specific ideas about conduct, honor, and truthfulness. If his daughter has been lying about assaulting someone, especially someone he considers family, there are going to be consequences. What kind of consequences? Quote. Before Dad could answer, his phone rang. He looked at the screen and his face went pale. It's Marcus. He answered without putting it on speaker this time, but Marcus's voice was loud enough that I caught fragments. Completely out of control, saying she wants to press charges, claims Jake threatened her. Dad's voice was steel. Marcus, stop talking and listen to me. Your wife slapped your brother over a parking space. We have video evidence. Her father is coming to town tomorrow to investigate because he doesn't tolerate this kind of behavior from his family. If Stephanie wants to involve the police, that's her choice. But she should know that filing a false report is a felony. The line went quiet. Furthermore, Dad continued, if she files charges against Jake, I will file assault charges against her. The video evidence will speak for itself. I couldn't hear Marcus's response, but Dad's face grew darker. No, Marcus. I will not ask Jake to apologize for being attacked in his own family. And if you can't see why that's wrong, then you need to spend some time thinking about what kind of man you want to be. He hung up and immediately dialed another number. Carol, it's Robert. Is the guest room available? Good. Jake will be there by midnight. After he hung up, we sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, Dad spoke. General Chen served in Iraq and Afghanistan. He commanded thousands of soldiers, managed multi-million-dollar operations, and earned more medals than most people see in museums. But you know what impressed me most when I researched him tonight? I shook my head. In 2018, he court-martialed his own nephew for abusing his authority over lower-ranking soldiers. His own family. The nephew was stripped of rank and dishonorably discharged. Dad looked directly at me. This is not a man who tolerates abuse of power, even from people he loves. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Jake, this is General Chen. I understand there was an incident involving my daughter today. I will be at your brother's house tomorrow at 1,000 hours to discuss the matter. Your presence is requested but not required. Raymond Chen. I showed the text to Dad, who read it twice. Formal, military precision. He's treating this like an official investigation. Should I be there? That's your choice. But if you go, you tell the truth. Nothing but the truth. Men like General Chen can spot lies from orbit. Quote. Another text came through, this one from Emma. Stephanie is freaking out. She just called her dad crying, saying Marcus's family is ganging up on her. She has no idea what's coming. Then one from Sarah. My dad says General Chen sounded displeased when they spoke. That's the word he used, displeased. Coming from a man who once stared down Taliban commanders, that's not good for Stephanie. Dad stood up and headed toward the stairs. Get your things. We leave in an hour. Dad? He turned back. What do you think is going to happen tomorrow? His expression was unreadable. I think your brother's wife is about to learn the difference between demanding respect and earning it. As I packed my bag, my phone continued buzzing with updates. Marcus had called Emma, trying to convince her to delete the videos. Emma had refused. Tyler had apparently sent his recording to 3 different people for safekeeping. Stephanie had locked herself in the master bedroom and was refusing to come out. But the most interesting message came from David. General Chen just called my house. He wanted Tyler's contact information. When I asked why, he said he needed to verify the chain of custody for evidence. Jake, this man is treating your slap like a military tribunal. Stephanie is in serious trouble. The drive to Portland gave me 3 hours to think about everything that had happened. By the time we pulled into Aunt Carol's driveway, I'd reached a conclusion that surprised me. I wasn't angry anymore. I was curious. For 24 years, I'd been the youngest, the screw-up, the one who couldn't quite measure up to Marcus's achievements. Tomorrow, for the first time in my life, someone with real authority was going to treat me like my word mattered as much as anyone else's. Aunt Carol met us at the door with coffee and the kind of fierce hug that only comes from women who've raised their own children and aren't easily shocked by family drama. So, she said, settling into her kitchen chair after Dad had left, tell me about this sister-in-law of yours who thinks she can slap family members. I told her everything. When I finished, Aunt Carol was quiet for a long moment. Jake, honey, I think you're about to witness something that most people never see. What's that? What happens when someone who's used to intimidating people meets someone who can't be intimidated? She was right. Tomorrow was going to change everything. I didn't sleep much that night. By 6 a.m., I was sitting at Aunt Carol's kitchen table, drinking coffee that was strong enough to wake the dead, and staring at my phone like it might explode. The messages had been coming in steady waves since midnight. Emma, 12:47 a.m. Stephanie tried to get Marcus to call the police. He refused. They've been fighting for hours. Tyler, 1:23 a.m. Dude, she offered me $500 to delete the video. I told her no and she started crying. Sarah, 2:15 a.m. General Chen landed at SeaTac 2 hours early. He's driving down now. My dad says he sounded mission-focused on the phone. David, 3:08 a.m. Marcus called me begging me to convince everyone to let this go. I told him his wife assaulted you, and there's nothing to let go. He hung up on me. The most recent message was from Dad, sent at 5:30 a.m. General Chen is at Marcus's house. It's starting. Aunt Carol emerged from her bedroom at 6:15, already dressed, and carrying herself like a woman preparing for battle. Any word? I showed her the messages. She read them while pouring her own coffee, her expression growing more interested with each one. You know what I think? What? I think you should be there. The suggestion caught me off guard. Dad said I should stay away from the situation. Your father said you should remove yourself until her father got involved. Well, he's involved now. She sat down across from me. Jake, this isn't just about what happened yesterday anymore. This is about who you are, and whether you're going to let other people define that for you. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Unknown number. Jake Morrison speaking. Mr. Morrison, this is General Raymond Chen. I believe we exchanged text messages yesterday. His voice was exactly what I'd expected. Calm, precise, with the kind of authority that didn't need volume to be heard. Yes, sir. I'm currently at your brother's residence conducting interviews regarding the incident. I would like to speak with you as well. Are you available? I looked at Aunt Carol, who was nodding vigorously. Yes, sir. I can be there in 2 hours. Excellent. Please report to the address at 1,200 hours. Come alone and bring identification. The line went dead. Aunt Carol was already reaching for her car keys. I'm driving you. He said, come alone. I'll drop you off and wait around the corner. This is family, Jake. You don't face family problems alone. The drive back to Millfield Heights felt like traveling to a different planet. Aunt Carol filled the silence with stories about her own family dramas, but I could barely focus. My mind was spinning with questions about what I'd find when I got there. We turned onto Marcus's street at 11:45 a.m., and immediately I knew something was different. There were 3 cars in the driveway instead of the usual 2, Marcus's BMW, Stephanie's white Lexus, and a black Ford Explorer with government plates that looked like it could survive an apocalypse. Aunt Carol pulled over 2 houses down. That's gotta be his vehicle. Through the front window of Marcus's house, I could see movement. Shadows passing back and forth like people pacing in a waiting room. "You sure about this?" Aunt Carol asked. I checked the time on my phone. 11:58 a.m. No, but I'm doing it anyway. The walk to the front door felt like the longest 30 yards of my life. Before I could knock, the door opened. General Raymond Chen was not what I'd expected. He was shorter than I'd imagined, maybe 5'8", with silver hair and the kind of posture that made him seem taller than he was. He wore civilian clothes, khakis and a polo shirt, but carried himself like he was still in uniform. His eyes were the same dark brown as Stephanie's, but where hers could be calculating, his were simply direct. "Mr. Morrison, thank you for coming. Please, inside." The house felt different than it had 2 days ago. The furniture was the same, the decorations unchanged, but the atmosphere was charged with tension that made the air feel heavy. Marcus was sitting on the couch, looking like he hadn't slept. When he saw me, his expression went through several emotions: relief, guilt, something that might have been apology. "Jake." Marcus. General Chen gestured toward the dining room table, which had been transformed into what looked like a command center. Legal pads, pens, a digital recorder, and 2 phones were arranged with military precision. "Please sit. Before we begin, I want to establish the ground rules. This is not a trial, but it is a formal inquiry. Everything said will be recorded. You are under no legal obligation to participate, but I encourage complete honesty. Do you consent to being recorded?" "Yes, sir." He pressed a button on the recorder. "This is General Raymond Chen, retired United States Army. The time is 1201 hours, August 15th. Present are myself and Jake Morrison. Mr. Morrison, please state your full name and relationship to the involved parties." "Jake Morrison. Marcus is my older brother. Stephanie is my sister-in-law." "Thank you. I have already interviewed your brother, your sister Emma, and Tyler Williams. I have reviewed video evidence from 2 sources. Now I would like to hear your account of the events that occurred on August 13th at this residence." I told him everything, from the parking request to the slap to Marcus taking Stephanie's side. General Chen didn't interrupt, didn't ask questions, just listened with the kind of focus that made me feel like every word mattered. When I finished, he was quiet for nearly a minute. "Mr. Morrison, in your opinion, was there any physical threat to my daughter during this interaction?" "No, sir. I never raised my voice or made any threatening gestures." "Did you at any point use profanity or language that could be considered aggressive?" "No, sir." "Did you make any physical contact with my daughter before she struck you?" "No, sir." He made notes on his legal pad, then looked directly at me. "What outcome are you seeking from this situation?" The question caught me unprepared. "I'm sorry?" "What do you want to happen as a result of this incident? Punishment? Apology? Legal action?" I thought about it for a moment. "I want my brother to acknowledge what actually happened. I want Stephanie to understand that hitting people isn't acceptable. And I want this family to figure out how to function without someone getting assaulted." General Chen nodded slowly. "Those are reasonable expectations." He stood up and turned off the recorder. "Mr. Morrison, I want to apologize to you on behalf of my family. My daughter's behavior was unacceptable by any standard, but particularly by the standards she was raised with." "Thank you, sir. However, I also want you to understand that what comes next may be difficult for everyone involved." Before I could ask what he meant, Stephanie's voice came from the top of the stairs. "Daddy, are you finished down there?" General Chen's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted. "Stephanie, please come down. We need to talk." The sound of footsteps on the stairs was like a countdown timer. When Stephanie appeared, she looked smaller than I remembered. Her eyes were red from crying, and she moved like someone walking to their own execution. "Hi, Jake," she said quietly. "I'm glad you came." General Chen gestured for her to sit across from me at the table. When she was settled, he restarted the recorder. "This is a continuation of the inquiry. Present are General Raymond Chen, Jake Morrison, and Stephanie Chen Morrison. Stephanie, I have reviewed video evidence and conducted interviews with all witnesses to the incident. I am now going to ask you some direct questions, and I expect direct answers." Stephanie nodded, but I could see her hands shaking. "Did you strike Jake Morrison on August 13th? A long pause. "Yes." "Was this strike in response to any physical threat from Mr. Morrison?" Another pause. "No." "Did you tell him to, quote, know his place in this family?" Her voice was barely audible. "Yes." General Chen leaned back in his chair. "Stephanie, you were raised better than this. You know better than this. Explain to me how this happened." And that's when everything changed. Stephanie looked at her father across the dining room table like a soldier about to confess to desertion. The confident woman who had slapped me 2 days ago was gone, replaced by someone who seemed to be shrinking with each passing second. "I was trying to maintain standards," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "The house, the neighborhood, the family image. Everything has to be perfect because that's what you taught me." General Chen's expression remained neutral, but I caught the slight tightening around his eyes. "Continue." "Jake's car was old and beat up, and I didn't want the neighbors to see it parked in our driveway. It reflects poorly on Marcus and his career prospects." "So you asked him to move it?" "Yes, but he argued with me. He questioned my authority in my own home." General Chen made a note. "And then?" Stephanie's hands were clasped so tightly in her lap that her knuckles had gone white. "He called me controlling. He said I had serious issues. In front of Emma and Tyler. I felt humiliated." "So you struck him?" The words hung in the air like a challenge. Stephanie looked around the room, at me, at Marcus, at the recorder, anywhere except at her father. I reacted defensively. It wasn't planned. General Chen set down his pen and leaned forward. "Stephanie, I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. In 38 years of military service, I learned that there are only 2 types of people who strike others over verbal disagreements: bullies and cowards. Which one are you?" The question hit like a physical blow. Stephanie's eyes filled with tears, but General Chen wasn't finished. "Furthermore, the idea that you were maintaining family standards by assaulting a family member is so fundamentally backwards that I question whether you understood anything I tried to teach you growing up." "Daddy, I'm not finished." His voice carried the kind of authority that could probably stop tanks. "You told Mr. Morrison to know his place in this family. What exactly did you mean by that?" Stephanie glanced at Marcus, who was staring at his hands like they held the answers to the universe. "I meant that as the wife of the oldest son, I have certain responsibilities to maintain order, to ensure that everyone understands the hierarchy." "Hierarchy," General Chen repeated the word like it tasted bad. "Stephanie, hierarchy in a family is not a chain of command. It's not about who has authority over whom. It's about who takes care of whom, who protects whom, who lifts whom up when they fall." He stood up and began pacing behind his chair, a movement that somehow made the entire room feel smaller. "You want to talk about knowing your place? Let me tell you about knowing your place. Your place in this family is to be a bridge between the Morrisons and the Chens. Your place is to make both families stronger, not to divide them. Your place is to treat your husband's siblings like they're your own siblings." Stephanie was crying now, but General Chen's voice remained steady. "Instead, you chose to treat your brother-in-law like a subordinate who needed to be put in his place. You chose to use physical violence to enforce your will. You chose to lie about what happened when confronted with the consequences." "I didn't lie." "You told 3 different versions of events in the span of 2 hours. Your husband told me you initially claimed it was an accident, then self-defense, then a misunderstanding. Which was it?" Stephanie looked trapped. It was wrong. I was wrong." General Chen sat back down and picked up his pen. Mr. Morrison, I owe you an apology that goes beyond words. My daughter attacked you in your own family. She then attempted to manipulate the narrative to avoid consequences. This is not who she was raised to be. I found my voice. Sir, I appreciate that, but I think the apology needs to come from her. He nodded approvingly. Agreed. Stephanie? She looked at me with eyes that were red and puffy from crying. Jake, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I hit you. I'm sorry I called you names. I'm sorry I tried to make everyone think you were the problem. She paused, struggling with the words. I'm sorry I disrespected you in your own family. The apology felt genuine, but General Chen wasn't done. Stephanie, an apology is meaningless without understanding. Do you understand why what you did was wrong? Because I hurt Jake? That's part of it. What else? She thought for a moment. Because I abused my position in the family? Better. What else? Because I lied about it afterward? And? Stephanie looked confused. General Chen waited. Finally, Marcus spoke up from the couch. Because you put me in an impossible position. Everyone turned to look at him. He stood up slowly, like someone carrying a heavy weight. You made me choose between my wife and my brother. You made me question what I saw with my own eyes. You made me defend the indefensible. His voice was getting stronger. You made me into someone I don't recognize. Stephanie's face crumpled. Marcus, I never meant. Yes, you did. The words came out flat and final. You absolutely meant to make me choose. You counted on me choosing you over what was right. General Chen was watching this exchange with the focus of someone studying a battle map. Mr. Morrison, Marcus, what are you saying? Marcus looked at his father-in-law, then at me, then at his wife. I'm saying that I failed as a brother. I'm saying that I let someone convince me that keeping peace was more important than standing up for what's right. I'm saying that I owe Jake an apology that's bigger than this room. He walked over to where I was sitting and extended his hand. Jake, I'm sorry. Not just for what happened 2 days ago, but for who I became in this marriage. For letting someone change me into the kind of person who would side against his own family. I shook his hand, but General Chen was already moving to the next phase of whatever this was. Stephanie, there are going to be consequences for your actions. Immediate consequences. What kind of consequences? First, you will write a formal letter of apology to every member of the Morrison family who was present during the incident. These letters will acknowledge what you did, why it was wrong, and what you're going to do to ensure it never happens again. Stephanie nodded frantically. Second, you will attend anger management counseling, not because you have an anger problem, but because you have a control problem that led to violence. Okay, quote. Third, you will perform 40 hours of community service at the Veterans Affairs Hospital in Portland. You will work with people who understand what real service and sacrifice look like. Yes, sir. General Chen turned to Marcus. And you, young man, are going to marriage counseling, both of you, because this marriage has fundamental problems that go beyond a single incident. Marcus nodded. Finally, General Chen said, turning back to me, Mr. Morrison, I want you to know that if my daughter ever, and I mean ever, raises her hand to you or any member of your family again, you have my full permission to call the police immediately. And you have my word that I will personally ensure she faces the full consequences of her actions. The room went completely silent except for the sound of Stephanie crying. Do I make myself clear to everyone? A chorus of, yes, sir, filled the room. General Chen turned off the recorder and began packing up his materials with military efficiency. Good. This matter is now closed, pending completion of the consequences I've outlined. As he reached the door, he turned back one final time. Jake, walk with me to my vehicle. We stepped outside into the afternoon sun, leaving behind a house full of people trying to figure out how to rebuild relationships that had been shattered and exposed. What he said next changed everything I thought I knew about family, power, and what it really means to earn respect. General Chen walked toward his black Ford Explorer with the measured pace of someone who had spent decades making difficult decisions. When we reached his vehicle, he leaned against the driver's side door and studied me with those direct brown eyes that seemed to see everything. Jake, I want to tell you something that I've never told another civilian. I waited. In 2009, I was commanding a forward operating base in Afghanistan. We had a young sergeant, good soldier, respected by his men, who was being harassed by a lieutenant who outranked him. The lieutenant was from a wealthy family, had connections, thought his rank gave him the right to humiliate anyone below him. General Chen pulled out a small notebook and pen, the kind soldiers carry for quick notes. The harassment went on for weeks. The sergeant tried to handle it through proper channels, but the lieutenant's family had influence. Nothing happened. What did you do? I waited, I watched, I documented everything. He scribbled something in the notebook and tore out the page. Then one day, the lieutenant crossed a line. He struck the sergeant during a briefing, in front of 20 other soldiers. I took the piece of paper he handed me. It had a phone number written in precise handwriting. What happened to the lieutenant? Court-martial. Dishonorably discharged. His family's influence meant nothing once there was video evidence of him assaulting a subordinate. General Chen's expression was unreadable. The sergeant went on to become one of the finest officers I ever served with. I looked at the phone number. Sir, what is this? My direct line. I want you to understand something, Jake. What happened in that house today wasn't just about resolving a family dispute. It was about establishing a precedent. A precedent? My daughter learned today that actions have consequences. Your brother learned that enabling bad behavior makes you complicit in it. And you learned that standing up for yourself doesn't make you the problem. He straightened up from the vehicle. But more importantly, everyone in your family learned that there are people in this world who will stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. A car pulled up behind us. Dad's Honda Civic. He'd apparently been circling the neighborhood, waiting for the meeting to end. General Chen noticed. Is that your father? Yes, sir. Good. I'd like to speak with him. Dad got out of his car and walked over with the cautious expression of someone approaching an unexploded bomb. General Chen extended his hand. Mr. Morrison, I'm Raymond Chen. I believe we spoke on the phone yesterday. General Chen, thank you for coming down here. Thank you for raising a son who knows how to stand up for himself without losing his integrity. General Chen glanced back toward the house. I wish I could say the same about what I raised. Dad followed his gaze. How is she taking it? About as well as someone can, when they discover their worldview was fundamentally flawed. General Chen opened his car door. Mr. Morrison, I want to share something with you. In my experience, families either grow stronger from conflict or they fall apart. The difference is whether people are willing to acknowledge their mistakes and change. Do you think they'll make it? Marcus and Stephanie? General Chen considered the question. That depends on whether your son is willing to remember who he was before he got married, and whether my daughter is willing to become someone better than who she's been. He climbed into the driver's seat and rolled down the window. Jake, that phone number isn't just for emergencies. If you ever need advice, a reference for a job, or just want to talk to someone who's dealt with difficult people in difficult situations, call me. Thank you, sir. And Jake, you handled yourself well there. A lot of young men would have wanted revenge or would have backed it down completely. You wanted justice and accountability. That shows character. The black Ford Explorer pulled away, leaving Dad and me standing in the afternoon sun outside Marcus's house. How do you feel? Dad asked. I thought about it. Different. Different how? Like I'm not the youngest anymore, like my opinion matters as much as anyone else's. Dad nodded. That's because it does. It always did. Sometimes it just takes the right person saying it for us to believe it. We were interrupted by the front door opening. Marcus stepped out, looking like someone who'd just survived a natural disaster. Jake, can we talk? Dad squeezed my shoulder. I'll wait in the car. Marcus and I sat on his front steps, two brothers trying to figure out how to rebuild something that had been broken. I don't know how to apologize for what I did, Marcus said finally. You already did, inside. That wasn't enough. Jake, I let her change me into someone I hate. I chose keeping peace over protecting my family. I chose being comfortable over being right. A neighbor walked by with their dog, probably wondering why two grown men were having what looked like a therapy session on a front porch. Marcus, can I ask you something? When did you stop thinking of me as your brother and start thinking of me as a problem to manage? The question hit him like I'd hoped it would. His face went through several expressions before settling on something that looked like recognition. I think it was gradual. Stephanie would make little comments about your job, your living situation, your car. Nothing mean, just observations. After a while, I started seeing you through her eyes instead of my own. And what did you see? Someone who wasn't living up to his potential. Someone who needed guidance. Someone who... He trailed off. Someone who needed to know his place? Marcus winced. Yeah, and that's not who you are. That's not who you've ever been. We sat in silence for a few minutes, watching cars drive by and people living their normal Saturday lives. What happens now? I asked. Now I figure out how to be your brother again, and Stephanie figures out how to be part of this family instead of trying to run it. Think she can do it? Marcus looked back toward his house, where through the window we could see Stephanie sitting at the dining room table, writing what I assumed were the apology letters her father had demanded. I hope so, because if she can't, then I have some bigger decisions to make. That evening, I sat in Aunt Carol's living room, telling her everything that had happened. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. You know what I think the most important part of all this was? She finally said. The apology? No. It was when General Chen asked you what outcome you wanted. Because most people in your situation would have wanted punishment or revenge, or for the other person to suffer. What did I want? You wanted the truth to be acknowledged. You wanted the behavior to stop. You wanted the family to function better. She smiled. Those are the goals of someone who understands that winning isn't about defeating other people. It's about making things better for everyone. 3 months later, I got a text from Stephanie. It was a photo of her at the VA hospital, helping an elderly veteran in a wheelchair. The message read, Week 8 of community service. I'm learning a lot about what real service looks like. Thank you for not pressing charges. LS. I showed the text to Dad, who was visiting me at my new apartment, the one I'd gotten with the raise from my promotion to assistant manager at the hardware store. Think she means it? He asked. I think her father made sure she means it. My phone buzzed with another message, this one from Marcus. Stephanie and I finished our 3rd counseling session today. It's hard work, but we're figuring it out. Thanks for giving us the chance to figure it out. And finally, one from General Chen. Jake, I wanted you to know that my daughter speaks about you with respect now. She says you taught her the difference between demanding respect and earning it. Well done. Raymond. 6 months after that barbecue that changed everything, our family had learned something important. Sometimes the worst thing that can happen to you becomes the best thing that could have happened. Sometimes getting slapped across the face is exactly what everyone needed to wake up. And sometimes the person who seems to have all the power is actually the weakest person in the room. The real power belongs to the people who stand up for what's right, tell the truth when it's difficult, and choose justice over comfort. I learned that from an army general who taught his daughter the same lesson I learned. In any family, in any situation, respect isn't about knowing your place. It's about knowing your worth. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.